The automotive world is absolutely rife with controversy and debate. Hop into the comments section on a post or video about a new car, and you'll be met with division, and you guessed it, division. This video comes out of my curiosity more than anything, as I feel like I see the topic discussed often in post and video comments, but I rarely see an actual formalized conversation about it take place. Today's topic is Ferrari. Pretty general and broad umbrella, but let's take a moment to think about what Ferrari symbolizes to the general public. Ferrari is a symbol of wealth and speed, but not just money. It screams refinement and opulence, the kind of wealth not just anyone can acquire. The advent of electric cars, another hot topic, which I won't be discussing today. Almost anyone can get a fast car, but not just anyone can get a Ferrari. The company itself buys into this heavily. Attempting to gatekeep the ability to buy one of their cars is a privilege for those deemed worthy, and binding the owners of their cars to restrictions on modifying and selling their vehicles. There are quite severe legal repercussions for those who do dare violate their terms. Their high expectations are backed up by over 80 years of history, which includes the creation of some of the most iconic cars ever built, tremendous success in motorsports, and billions of dollars. This is no VinFast, okay? Ferrari is an established top dog, not just among cars, but among exotic cars. And I'm saying that as a Porsche boy at heart. With all that in mind, there's just one small crack in the picturesque brand image that Ferrari has crafted. They really struggle with names, sometimes. Now, I'm not putting myself on a high horse here. As an engineering student, I can't count the number of times that I've needed to come up with a name for a group project, and my group members and I literally stare blankly at one another for about 10 minutes before we just settle on something like Name Crisis as the name, and we move on. Further, I think that by and large, Ferrari's names are actually pretty good. Most of them involve a number, which is pretty standard for European exotic, and some of them throw on a letter or two that may or may not mean something. Some involve places, like California or Modena, or are simply an Italian word like pista, which means track, or speciale, which means special. Generally speaking, the names evoke some sort of feeling or emotion or meaning. The 458 Italia, for example, was the last of the naturally aspirated Italian flat-plane V8s. It was the end of an era. The 599XX is an extreme track-focused version of the normal 599. However, there are two recent models that have both made me raise my eyebrows and say, "Really?" when I learned what they were named. Now, before I talk about these two cars and their Hot Wheels-esque names, a touch of context. 2 generations back, Ferrari released the F12 Berlinetta, a successor to the 599. This car was meant to be the quintessential Italian sports coupe. Comfortable, elegant, and wicked fast are the words that come to mind. Though I was always a fan of the mid-engine designs, even as a kid I thought that this car was pretty cool. As it began to age, I obviously looked forward to seeing what Ferrari would cook up next. But oh, what surprise I felt when I saw the car on the front of the latest edition of Car and Driver. The Ferrari 812 or 812 Superfast had arrived. It looked pretty good, although I didn't consider it much of a visual upgrade to the F12 Berlinetta. What really killed me, though, even as a teenager, was the name. Why did they call it the Superfast? It just sounded weird and tacked on to an otherwise extremely respectable and mature car. I shrugged it off after a couple of months. Surely the successor would correct this oddity. That's right, folks. They named it the Ferrari 12-cylinder. Now, I know it's a really obvious name, but I do think this one has a little bit more merit to it than the Superfast moniker. It's very likely that just as the 458 Italia was the last naturally aspirated V8, the 12-cylinder will be the last naturally aspirated V12. That's a pretty good send-off to an iconic engine that most people assumed we would never even get for another generation of car. And it makes an absolutely earth-shattering 830 horsepower without an ounce of turbocharger or supercharger, which is absolutely an engineering feat. However, I do take umbrage with the fact that another Ferrari has a name that would have fit this car much better. This is an SUV named the Ferrari Purosangue. That means the Ferrari Thoroughbred or Pureblood. Yep. The first Ferrari SUV ever made got the name Thoroughbred. Meanwhile, the last naturally aspirated V12 Ferrari two-door coupe that will probably ever be made got stuck with the name 12-cylinder. It feels like a massive insult against true Ferrari fans who see the V12 Sports Coupe as something that Ferrari very uniquely does very well. Instead of the car built to send off an iconic era, they chose to give the much better, much more evocative, and emotionally charged name, Purosangue, to an SUV that almost entirely contradicts what Ferrari has stood for over 80 years. I'm not bashing the Purosangue as a car. I think as an SUV, it's about as Ferrari as you can get. But still, I mean, compared to the sports coupe, it just doesn't make sense. Okay, we get this adrenaline pumping animation with gas that looks like rushing blood. This car, the 12 Cylindri, was made to be the Purosangue. But for whatever reason, somebody probably up on a high-level marketing team was worried about forcing another exotic SUV out to the masses and decided that this car wouldn't get that name and would instead be stuck with something that will forever remind me of how Hot Wheels named the car with two engines the Twin Mill. Circling back to the title and thumbnail, does Ferrari have a bit of a naming problem? Absolutely, yes, they do. Case closed. Fight me in the comments. I'll be nice. Peace out.